right, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, zero tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
And away we go. Episode 1375 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. This is the day on which veterans report for 2026 Washington Commanders training camp. This is the day on which we expect General Manager Adam Peters and head coach Dan Quinn to speak to the media. This is the day after the team issued a surprising statement. Washington on Monday morning, quote, "We are parting ways with tight ends coach Ben Steele. The team will have no further comment at this time," end quote. Well, that did not sound good. That did not sound like a simple, innocent parting. And sure enough, according to court records for Loudoun County, Virginia, Steele on June 7th was arrested on suspicion of driving while intoxicated, and he faces additional charges for refusing a blood/breath test, obstructing/resisting without force, and changing course after signaling. From Commanders insider Nikki Javala of The Athletic on Monday morning in a post on X, quote, "A source close to the situation said the Commanders let Ben Steele go due to violation of team policy. He was placed on leave after he informed the Commanders of his arrest, and the team reported it to the league. Dan Quinn is expected to announce his replacement tomorrow," end quote. And tomorrow now is today, as in Tuesday. Might the team's new tight ends coach be offensive assistant Wes Welker? He, per reports, was the person who coached Washington tight ends during the team's mandatory minicamp in June as Ben Steele was on leave. Washington, this past March 2nd, in announcing the team's 2026 coaching staff, announced having hired Ben Steele as tight ends coach. He spent the 2023 through 2025 seasons as the Arizona Cardinals tight ends coach. He spent the 2019 season as an offensive assistant for the Atlanta Falcons and spent the 2020 season as the Falcons tight ends coach. Dan Quinn was the Falcons head coach February 2015 to October 2020. So Ben Steele, a Dan Quinn guy, but Ben Steele lasted for less than 5 months as Washington tight ends coach. Another former Washington offensive assistant coach is Eric Bieniemy. He spent the 2023 season as Washington assistant head coach/offensive coordinator. He, this past January, was hired for a second stint as Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator. And just an awful story, his son, 27-year-old Elijah Zion Bieniemy, arrested and charged with malicious wounding, use of a firearm in commission of a felony, and discharge of a firearm inside of a dwelling. All of this for shooting his mom, Eric Bieniemy's wife, at their home in Loudoun County, Virginia. Yeah, Bieniemy still lives in Loudoun County. I read to you from an ESPN.com piece by Chiefs insider Nate Taylor of ESPN. The piece came out on Monday morning, quote, Mia Bieniemy, 57, is hospitalized in stable condition, according to a source. Police in Loudoun County, Virginia, confirmed that a woman was being treated for serious injuries from multiple gunshot wounds, but did not disclose her identity. Sources told ESPN that Mia Bieniemy was shot in the chest and arm. End quote. A horrendous story. All the best to Eric Bieniemy and his family. Anyway, hello and welcome to this Tuesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast, on which we talk Washington Commanders on every episode, no matter the time of year. Also with Washington, it on Monday afternoon officially announced having signed unrestricted free agent cornerback Rasul Douglas, and announced having placed linebacker and special teams ace Nick Bellore on the reserve/retired list. The Bellore news was a surprise. Nick Bellore, 2 seasons with Washington, a key part of Washington's special teams, having been so good in each of the last 2 seasons, but the 2026 season would have been his age 37 season. Next segment, a terrific guest and a good friend, the radio play-by-play announcer of the Washington Commanders, Bram Weinstein. Bram's joining us for a preview of 2026 Washington Commanders training camp, including what he's looking forward to seeing, what Dan Quinn meant in saying that he expects this camp, quote, to be our most competitive camp that we've had had going into year 3, end quote. What to make of Washington's 2026 offseason in terms of player acquisitions. Whether Washington has done enough to support Jayden Daniels as QB1. The truth about why Washington parted with Kliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator and promoted David Blough to offensive coordinator. What to make of Jayden Daniels' 2025 season. What to expect from Daniels in the 2026 season. Insight on why Washington released center Tyler Biadasz and how Bram views Washington's new uniforms. We with Bram are going to cover a lot of ground. Bram Weinstein next segment, and also on the show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats, they lost to the Toronto Blue Jays 3-2 at Nationals Park on Monday evening. The O's, they won at the Detroit Tigers 8-5 on Monday evening. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. You can reach me via writing a review of the podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can write about whatever you want, and I'll read what you write if you give the podcast a 5-star rating. Email from Kim on Season 3 of Quarterback on Netflix. Among the quarterbacks profiled on Season 3, of course, Jayden Daniels, writes Kim. Hiya, Al. Been a bit since I've written last. Boy, this show has been, 1, very little about JD5, and 2, difficult to watch since you know the outcome on JD5, and yet I am putting myself through it again. The timing/selection of JD5 could not have been worse, which is unfortunate, but we are used to this kind of stuff, or should be at this point. Frustrated and extremely cautious about the upcoming season. Still need a WR2 at the least. Boggles my mind that we don't have one in the building. We have the money. Thank you for the email, Kim. I, on episode 1368 of this podcast, said that I had watched episode 1 of season 3 of Quarterback, but that I wasn't sure if I would watch more because of what exactly Kim said. We know the outcome for our guy, and it ain't good. I'm not that excited about reliving Jayden Daniels' injury-ruined 2025 season. Now, I have since watched episode 2, but as Kim noted, Daniels was barely featured. I have enjoyed the stuff on the other quarterbacks, especially the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' Baker Mayfield, but with the Jayden Daniels stuff, it's like, why subject yourself as a Washington fan to being tortured all over again? It is remarkable that the season for which a Washington quarterback gets featured on Quarterback ended up being one of the most disappointing seasons for a Washington quarterback ever. As for Washington still needing help at receiver, I don't disagree. It would be awesome if the team didn't do anything more at receiver, but ended up being just fine at receiver because Terry McLaurin stayed healthy and others emerged, but we can't just assume that those things will happen. The notion of Washington acquiring San Francisco 49ers receiver Brandon Aiyuk has faded, although did you see what he texted? Nikki Javala and Niners insider Matt Barrows of The Athletic, they co-authored a piece that came out on Monday morning, headline, quote, why Brandon Aiyuk is still a 49er as training camp opens and what comes next, end quote. The piece included this, quote, reached by text message on Friday, Aiyuk replied, AP and DQ quietly put together a squad. I'm the final piece that will swing all the odds in our favor. Trophy emoji. Hashtag go Commanders. Hashtag raise hail. End quote. And yet, Brandon Aiyuk, as best as we can tell, still has not applied for reinstatement from the reserve/left squad list. The widespread belief is that him doing that would lead to the Niners releasing him, making him free to sign with Washington, but he, as best as we can tell, still has not applied for reinstatement from that list. As we discussed on Monday's show, episode 1374, he more and more is coming across as someone who's all talk and no action. Meantime, there still are multiple notable receivers available as unrestricted free agents, including Stephon Diggs and Keenan Allen. We this past Sunday morning had this from ESPN NFL insider Jeremy Fowler on ESPN SportsCenter on Diggs.
So I'm told that at least 5 teams that need a receiver have been checking in on his market, see how things are going as he works out on his own. I'm told Diggs is highly motivated here because he's not rehabbing an ACL like he was last year. He only played about 55% of the snaps for New England, still got 1,000 yards. So he feels like he can be a really good number 2 receiver for a top quarterback. Now, Washington is intriguing to him because Jayden Daniels, young quarterback, he's from that DMV area. The rumors around the league are that Washington could add a receiver at some point to go with Terry McLaurin. So something should shake out for Diggs. But, hey, look, these guys don't always want to go to training camp and be in the 90-degree heat. They can wait a week or two before they sign.
Okay, so per Jeremy Fowler, at least 5 teams that need a receiver have been checking in on the market for Stephon Diggs. Presumably Washington has been one of those teams, but we don't know that for sure. And what Fowler said specifically about Washington was that Washington is intriguing to Diggs and that, quote, the rumors around the league are that Washington could add a receiver at some point, end quote. Neither one of those items was some revelation. Washington is intriguing to Diggs. Yeah, he's made that clear. And, quote, the rumors around the league are that Washington could add a receiver at some point, end quote. I mean, that's not saying anything. The rumors around the league are that Washington could add a receiver at some point. A lot of qualifiers in that statement. And I'm not knocking Jeremy Fowler. I think that he's really good, but there just isn't much out there on what Washington is thinking at receiver. Adam Peters has this organization on lock regarding leaks. It really is something. And yet Washington does still have plenty of salary cap space. Washington, per overthecap.com, as of Monday morning, was number 3 in the NFL in both cap space and effective cap space. Hey, please consider subscribing to this podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. Good to have you with us as 2026 Washington Commanders training camp is beginning. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast the radio play-by-play announcer of the Washington Commanders, Bram Weinstein. He is entering his 7th season as the radio voice of the team. He is the host of the Bram Weinstein Show podcast. He is the owner of Empire Media. He has a great website, BramWeinstein.com. I worked with Bram at what is now the Team 980 for years. I met Bram in 1999 when I was a punk intern at what was then Sports Talk 980. You can follow Bram on X at RealBramW. Hey, Bram, good to talk to you. How are you?
Good to talk to you, Al. How you been?
Doing well. Training camp season is here. I know that you'll be attending a lot of Washington's practices this training camp. Are there things that you're especially looking forward to watching?
Yeah, this one's different. I think they'd kind of signaled this by saying it out loud, and I agreed back in the spring. This is the most competitive camp that they're going to have under Quinn and Peters for sure. I think it's the deepest team that they've had under Quinn and Peters. I think they did a lot in the offseason here. I actually think there's real competition at certain position groups, like obviously wide receiver, and I think obviously a corner. And I want to see how safety shakes out, and I want to see what the rotation is going to be on the defensive line. I do believe there's an open competition at left guard. So, like, this is a really different camp. It's a really deep team. And so I think there's a lot of meat to this one, and I'm really interested to see where it is. And then you got 2 new coordinators and a brutal first month of the schedule. So, like, how ready are they going to be for the start of the season? Like, I think all of those things are kind of circulating as we get going here.
It is interesting that Dan Quinn, during his pre-OT practice press conference on June 9th, said of 2026 Washington Commanders training camp, quote, I do fully expect this to be our most competitive camp that we've had going into year 3, end quote. Here was him saying that.
I do fully expect this to be our most competitive camp that we've had, in going into year 3.
Okay, and I, on episode 1345 of this podcast, did a segment discussing whether Dan Quinn saying that might have been a tacit admission that the training camp that he ran last year was too soft. Now, competitive doesn't literally mean the same thing as hard or tough, but a head coach in the modern NFL almost certainly isn't just going to come out and say that he plans on running a harder or tougher training camp than he ran the previous year. Competitive can be a nice, more pleasant, more acceptable way of saying hard or tough. But I ask you, what did you take from Quinn saying that he expects this training camp to be the most competitive of his 3 training camps as Washington head coach?
I do remember last year feeling like there were not many spots up for grabs. So I think that's what he meant by it. He's taken a lot of criticism for the way they conducted camp a year ago, which obviously, like, with so many veterans, and they kind of ran it back with the group that they had off 12-5. This was, at least perceptually, not a particularly hard camp. And then I remember sitting there going, let's just get this over with, because we know who the starters are, short of like injuries that happened in the summer. Like, we know who the team is. Let's just get going here. And I don't feel that way this time around. I think this is just a deeper roster. I think like the first offseason where they brought in Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz and all those veterans, and they lightning in a bottle, and they had the 2024 season that they had, and everyone kind of looked at that and said, like, see, like, it's reborn, and like, it's not just for the here and now, but into the future, we're going to have a very competitive team. And obviously last year, everything that could go wrong really went wrong, but the offseason, they did not do kind of the dramatic changes to the roster that they did this time around. So if they're going to reach their goals of having a team that's not a one-off and is going to be competitive on an annual basis, I think we're going to look back at this offseason as the one, not the 2024 one, this one that really kind of set the everything kind of in motion. They've also had a couple of, draft classes to work with as well. So, they're in year 3, but this feels like the offseason where they did the most work. And I think he just means competition wise, it's going to be the most competitive camp they've had. And it's hard for me to disagree with that. I think there's a lot of actual positions that are up for grabs this summer.
Washington in the 2026 offseason was very active in free agency. We had what the team did in the 2026 NFL draft. Did you find what the team did in the offseason to be appropriate off going just 5-12 in the 2025 regular season?
Totally appropriate on defense for sure. I mean, like, they had to get younger, faster, and I think they attacked that. I think that they are deeper at the defensive line than they've been in a very long time. They went and, they've been reluctant to spend big money on anybody. They did it. I think it was out of necessity. I think they needed to do it a year ago. Just didn't work out. They weren't going to be the sucker giving up 2 first-round picks for Trey Hendrickson, because that was like the only thing that was kind of available. They didn't feel like they needed to pay market value for someone like Josh Sweat. But this time around, they did feel the necessity, and I think the pressure to go sign somebody like Odafe Owe, and they're hoping that it pays off. On the other side of it, I really love the number of kind of like the comfort zone signings that they did. Amik Robertson, not a long term, not a crazy number. He's going to fill a role for them. Leo Chanel, not a crazy number, going to really fit a role for them. I think their linebacking core is the best it's been across the board in years. If you had Sonny Styles, Luvu, and Chanel. And so I think like everything, and I think Nick Cross's signing is very underrated for what he potentially could be on this defense. So I think they did everything. They checked off a bazillion boxes on defense. On offense, we can argue, did they need to get another receiver? And, we can have that discussion if you want, because there does not appear to be a clear number 2. There are a lot of people that could fill in and by committee, make up number 2. And if we have the quarterback that we think we have, he's supposed to elevate people anyway, right? So, I think we could have that discussion about, did they do enough on offense for Jayden and company? But defensively, I think that they kind of checked off as many boxes as they could.
Well, how do you answer the question of, has Washington done enough to support Jayden Daniels as QB1?
I think one thing that's underrated from a year ago was Terry McLaurin also barely played. Like, he had the hold in, and then he got hurt, and then he never was really truly healthy. And by the time that he was, Jayden wasn't playing anymore. And so it was just a lost year for him. That's very unusual. So I think that's been underrated here when people say he doesn't have any weapons. He has a number 1 receiver who also didn't play a year ago. I love Zach Ertz for his leadership. He became a blanket in the red zone. He became a chain mover. But I think they needed to upgrade the position in terms of stretching the field, and they were able to do that with Chigakonkwo. I really loved that signing too. I want to see how the running back room shakes out. I'm not totally sure how that's going to work out. I think their big play guy is Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. But I'm not sure if he's in line behind Rachaad White, or if they're going to work as, a duo and White is kind of their third down back, or if they envision White with a bigger role. Like, I think that one's one that's going to play out a little bit into the summer. And then they used the draft pick on Katron Allen, and they brought in Jerome Ford. It's a very crowded room. Like I said, it's another one that's like, there's 1 or 2 guys who are not going to make the team that, just out of sheer numbers. And then there's the other receiver spot. And Treylon Burks, could he become become someone that is closer to the ceiling when he was drafted as a first-round pick? Maybe. My gut says I don't think you're counting on that for 18 weeks, but there are probably a few weeks there where he could be really effective for you. They used a draft pick on Antonio Williams. Everyone talks up their draft picks. They've been talking him up big time. I think if we're going to use traditional ways to describe people, like he wouldn't be number 2, he'd be number 3. If the movable part, the slot receiver, if he's number 3, I think they're hoping that that's what he is. De'Ami Brown coming back, I don't think should be underrated here a little bit, but then again, he's also not a 100 target, a year person. And then there's Van Jefferson and Luke McCaffrey. So that's why I kind of feel like, do they need another receiver? No. Like, could they use an upgrade in talent at the receiver position? Maybe. We could argue that. Do they have enough to fill the role collectively? Sure. And the one thing that worries me about that is it's a new coordinator with a new offense, and you kind of want everybody on the same page. And if you're going to be shuttling people in and out because you're looking for the right packages, it may take a little time to find out who you are offensively. And we're kind of playing the wrong teams at the beginning of the season to find out who you are. So it's like there's a catch-22 going on here. I don't think the void at receiver is as pronounced as some people make it out to be. But that said, I could be proven really wrong, and we could be proven wrong early, and they could be in a hole because of who they're playing. So it's tricky. And that's why I think this training camp is very, very, very different than all of the others for all of those reasons.
With the change at offensive coordinator, if you had to explain to someone who doesn't follow Washington why it parted with Kliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator and promoted David Blough to offensive coordinator, what would be your explanation?
I think there's a lot of things. I think one, I don't think it was that they didn't think Kliff could be effective. I think they wanted to take a lot of the weight off of Jayden's shoulders. And they were running more plays than anybody in the NFL. He was apt to run more than I think that they're comfortable with. He obviously came off a season where he took 3 injuries, and one of them was brutal and hard to watch. And so I think that they want to not have him risk himself as much, and they wanted to go to a more pro-style offense. The Kingsbury offense is not the norm in the NFL. It feels a little more run and shoot. I think it did work for Daniels, because the interesting part about this new offense is, and I know everyone keeps saying, of course I played under center. Yeah, it's been a while. It's not like he's done that a lot. It's not like he's played at a slower tempo before. It's not like he hasn't kind of been the center of the universe. And at times, I think they want to take some weight off of him. So my gut says, and they've never really totally addressed it, but I just think that they just kind of thought about his future, where he can be effective. What I loved about him coming out of college, Al, was not just obviously the athletic ceiling, which is extremely high on him. He really was a pass-first quarterback, not a run-first quarterback. And in his first couple of years in the NFL, him just darting out of the pocket and becoming Superman had become, I think, a little too regular for them. And I think they feel like this offense with a different kind of structure, with different kind of priorities and different kind of reads, might keep him in the pocket a little bit more. And they'll ask him to be Superman a lot less. That's would be my long answer to it.
Jayden Daniels, over 5 seasons as a collegiate QB1, played in 55 of a possible 57 games. He and his all-time great 2024 rookie season played in all 20 of Washington's regular season and postseason games. But he last season played in just 7 of Washington's 17 regular season games due to getting injured 4 times. Do you view his 2025 season as an outlier, or do you view his 2025 season as reason for concern moving forward?
I mean, I hope. I think part of this was he puts his body in harm's way a lot. And this happened with Robert. Robert was an extraordinary athletic player. I don't think he's nearly the gifted passer that Daniels is, but he was an extraordinarily athletic player, a track star who could outrun people. And he found out the difference between his speed at the pro level and the college level is different, to the point where people double his size are breaking him in half. And I think Daniels, to me, is a smarter, not put his body on the line as much player, but it's a little unavoidable. And I just let's just be honest, he's not the biggest dude. And him taking a tremendous amount of punishment, it's hard for anybody, but him taking a tremendous amount of punishment just feels like is the wrong way to go. He just cannot carry the ball a million times. And so I think that they want to put him in an offense that accentuates his strengths. And of course he's going to run, and of course he's going to scramble, and of course there's going to be design run plays and a lot of rollouts and stuff like that to utilize his skill set. But I think you do want to try to limit some of the punishment on him. And, I think build is a part of that. And like if you go there, Dal, you've been, like, if you see him in person, you see, like, he's tall, he's strong, he's got this incredible arm, his speed's uncanny, his instincts are great, but he's not the biggest dude. And I don't want him getting hit by Micah Parsons all the time. It's just like, logically, you just don't want that happening.
When you think about Jayden Daniels' 2026 season, if he stays healthy, is there any compelling reason to think that he won't have what we want him to have, a big bounce-back season?
Not to me. I mean, I'm still a full 100% believer. I just think instinctually he's a really gifted player, let alone he's got the athletic gifts to kind of make like certain things happen. He's a magician. And, I just want to reiterate, like, I think McLaurin being out for the majority of the season last year has been totally underrated on this. Like him not being there, and you don't think that they had a number 2 this year. Go look at last year's number 2s that were running around once Noah Brown got injured and it became obvious he was not going to come back. Like, they just had nowhere to turn in terms of skill position players. And that's where I think things are a little bit different this time around. Healthy McLaurin, motivated McLaurin, a better arsenal of potential number 2 receivers, a draft pick utilized on a guy that they felt was drafted lower than they probably thought he was going to be. They're younger, they're faster. And like, look, the reality is, like, what is the complaint for that? It is everyone says about Lamar Jackson or Pat Mahomes or Josh Allen throughout their careers. They don't have enough around them. Everyone says this about them. Burrow's the only one because he's got a ridiculous duo of receivers that he's been blessed to have for, 5 years running now. All of these other superstar quarterbacks, it's all the same criticism. You didn't give him enough. You didn't give him enough. Somehow they end up in the playoffs every year anyway. And I'm hoping that that's the guy that we have here, that he elevates people.
Much more with Bram Weinstein in moments, but something that I love about summer is how easy everything feels. The days are a little more relaxed, and I find myself reaching for the same comfortable go-anywhere pieces again and again. That's why I keep coming back to Quince. Quince focuses on well-made essentials that naturally become those everyday staples that you actually live in all season long, like the shorts that I got from Quince, a sand dune-colored cotton chino drawstring shorts. They look and feel great. Instantly went to the front of the Goldie shorts rotation. Clothes from Quince are the summer upgrade that your rotation needs. Quince's 100% European linen pants and shirts are breathable and are easy to throw on, starting at just $34. Quince's tees are soft enough to live in all day, and the lightweight cotton sweaters are exactly what you want when summer nights cool down. And everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're paying for exceptional quality, not brand markup. Make your summer wardrobe easier. Go to quince.com/Galdi for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Galdi. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Galdi. More now with the radio play-by-play announcer of the Washington Commanders, Bram Weinstein, as we preview the team's 2026 training camp. How do you feel about Washington's offensive line as camp begins?
Pretty good. Tunsil's a stud. I think Connerly's reshaped his body. They really threw him to the fire last year. At this point last year, and then especially into camp, it became, I don't know, I felt like if he didn't start, day one, I wouldn't have been surprised because it clearly was a little ways to go for him. But he was night and day from week 1 to week 18. And I think it paid off that they threw him to the Wolves and it worked out for him. It could have gone the other way where it just killed his confidence. I don't think it did. Tunsil's taken him under his wing. So I like the tackle position a lot. Cosme healthy is all the difference in the world. So I'm hoping we get a Pro Bowl guard back. The other 2 spots are open questions, but I feel comfortable whoever wins left guard, Brandon Coleman or Chris Paul. And I think Coleman would have a role, especially in this offense where you're going a little more traditional and three tight ends at times, or the extra offensive lineman at times if you're going to run the ball a little bit more or try to be closer to 50-50 running the ball. Coleman actually became a really good mobile 6 lineman moving a year ago. So if that's the role role he ends up in, I feel good about that. I think center's the one that's kind of open question. I didn't know this about Nick Allegretti, but he told us like he had played center his whole life up until he got to the pros. And when he got to the pros, they transitioned him to guard, and he's happy to move back to center. So hopefully it works out for him. That's an open competition, but I'd be surprised if he didn't win it. It doesn't appear as if the rookie that they drafted is in any position to overtake that. And the other player who's really competing for it is Julian Good-Jones. So I think the experience that Allegretti has would probably make him a major front runner. But I do feel good about the line as a whole. I think it's, are there a couple of potential vulnerabilities in the middle left side? Maybe. I thought Chris Paul had a really good year. I think Brandon Coleman could be a starting left guard. And I like what's on the outside. So I feel good about the line.
It's funny how things can play out. As much as Washington's offensive line got talked up as being a positive as last season went on, the team in its 2026 offseason, A, parted with offensive line coach Bobby Johnson, and B, released center Tyler Biadasz. You look at those two developments, clearly the team had dissatisfaction with the offensive line last season. What was that dissatisfaction about?
I didn't know what the deal was with Bobby Johnson at all, but maybe it was just kind of a change in scheme, and so they just decided to go in a different direction. But so I don't really know, and they don't talk a lot about it. With Biadasz, I think it was a couple things that they've kind of mentioned, which was he had been banged up the last couple of years. He played through it, but he'd been banged up a little bit. He's making a lot of money. I think they felt like the future was going to be different at that position. And then, I've heard I think there's something about Allegretti playing towards the end of the year where they heard a different level of communication, and that's a big, big, big deal to Dan Quinn and company. He wants to hear them over communicate. He often talks about it all the time. Like when you ask him how was practice today, he'll say, I heard them. Like he just leans back into constantly talking about the communication on the field. He wants to have them together that way. And I think they just felt like maybe that wasn't the biggest strength of Biadasz, but I'm guessing a little bit here, but those are probably the two things. I mean, he was coming up on the last year of his contract. He's making a pretty good number. He had been banged up a little bit, and they saw Allegretti towards the end, and Allegretti held his own at the position, making a lot less money. And suddenly they felt like there was a different level of communication coming from the position. So that would be probably the reasoning to me.
The notion of Dan Quinn potentially being on the hot seat, when you hear that, you say what?
I don't think so. But if they go 5-12 again, I think everybody recognizes that that's not going to fly this time around. Number one, when we talk about the hot seat, I think a lot of that has to do with ownership. Like how steady is ownership? We lived in a world where the ownership was not steady for a very long time. And the idea that anything going wrong, let alone a full season going wrong, could be to this person a flippant move that could happen. That's not this group. This is, and we have experience with watching Josh Harris as owner of the 76ers or the Devils. Like they don't just change things willy-nilly. They are aggressive, but they don't just change things willy-nilly, and they do stick with people. And in fact, I think some of the criticism the Sixers fans would tell you is they stuck with Daryl Morey a little too long. Like if you ask them. So I think we have a steady ownership. I don't think 5-12 cuts it. So I think everyone recognizes that just cannot happen again. But I don't walk into the season feeling like there's a referendum on them. I think that there's full support behind Peters and Quinn. And, if the team has a terrible year, we could probably ask these questions and it'd probably be a different answer.
You, like me, are a fan of the Washington Commanders. You, like me, grew up as a Washington Redskins fan. How great are the new uniforms?
They look like the Redskins again. It's funny. Like when they went to Washington football team, they didn't really change very much. And so there was part of me that felt like, we'll just leave it like this because this is the color scheme and the jersey that we like. I think they wanted to, I heard Mark Klaus, the president, say something about, I was talking to him and he said something about this. And I thought it really kind of hit the mark for me about how they're thinking about it now and how the last group thought about it. And it's unfair to make the comparison because the last group was in the midst of, you have to change this, right? This group is in the midst of, you have to fix this, which I think is a much different, framing for them to work around. But Mark Klaus said something, and I thought it really hit the mark. He said, the last group was trying to run away as fast as they could from the brand. And he goes, we're trying to run a little bit back towards it, within reason, right? So that doesn't mean that you're going to see that logo in the middle of the field or on the helmet or that the name's going to change, because I don't think any of those things are going to happen. But giving I think the brand feel that we're all accustomed to, that we all rally around, I think matters. I think we all know that. You're a huge fan too. Like something didn't look right about the team for a few years there with those uniforms on. The black ones felt a little bit better, but they weren't really the traditional look. I just think it felt like, well, it's not the other ones. And now we're back looking like the team that we grew up with. And I think that that's a huge, huge, huge start. I don't think they're done here. I think it's going to continue. I think these, what you're seeing with the burgundy jerseys and the gold and the white jerseys, I think they're here to stay. I think we all know that. And then we'll see how the black ones go, like alternate uniforms change through the years. Let's see. I did like the helmet change too on the black uniforms, but I felt like there was something that didn't need to change when everything was going down, 5-6 years ago. And that was the color and the uniform, really. But I understand where they're coming from, where it was like, we have to get away from this because the world has decided we have to get away from this. And so they did. Did they hit the mark with the choices they made? No, obviously not. But now this group understands, I think, listen to its fan base, understands that there's a deep, deep, deep connection, and those color schemes and those jerseys are part of it. And they'll never be the Redskins again, but they look and feel like them a little bit, and I think that that's important.
Yeah, the way that I've described what's happening is managing partner Josh Harris is going with a strategy of, okay, maybe we can't have the name Redskins, but we could do all that we can to look and feel like the Redskins.
I feel the same way a little bit about the Wizards. I know that those jerseys that, really got made famous by Arenas and that company, have become kind of iconic and throwbacky now. But at the time, I remember thinking all right, so you're not the Bullets anymore, but did you have to run away from red, white, and blue? Did you have to run away from the look that everybody liked? And I guess they felt like they had to too. And I'm not a branding expert or a marketing person. So I don't want to pretend that I had no say in any of the decisions on either side. And I would have loved to have been in the room and talked about what we're talking about here, which is I've lived here my whole life. I genuinely love this team. Like they're a part of me, like they're my family. And those changes really matter. They don't feel like they do maybe at the time. And the marketing companies are doing their best to try to serve the NFL and serve the team and serve the fan base. But there's some things that I think tradition doesn't need to change. And those jerseys didn't need to change. Of all the things, I don't think that they did. And I don't want to get into an argument about the other things because, that's a pointless argument with people who have just decided that, woke this or whatever that, I just can't get into it. But the jerseys were not something that had to change. And that's why I think I'm just so pleased that they're kind of back.
The team president, Mark Klaus, has been very good speaking publicly about the issue with the name/brand. The Harris Group nailed that hire.
Yeah, no, he's done a great job. And he really comes at it from an unusual point of view. He's worked with billion-dollar worldwide brands. And that's why I loved what he said. He goes, you have to listen to what people want. Campbell's Soup, Campbell's Soup can't just change the can. And then, they can't just do that or decide they're not doing chicken noodle soup anymore. You have to stay with. And so I think he had this kind of perspective of understanding long-term legacy, how it matters, why it matters. And I agree with you. I've been very, very impressed with him. Obviously, he's in a different spot. If he was hired to do what Jason Wright had to do, which was change everything, I don't know what the answer would have been for him either. But now that they're asking him to get us back in a spot where we all feel really good about the product and what we see and the attire, I agree. I think he's just he's looking at it the right way, and they've just hit it out of the park with the looks that they've done the last couple of years.
The radio play-by-play announcer of the Washington Commanders, Bram Weinstein. Bram, thank you. All the best.
Thanks, Al.
All right. Hey, whatever big event that you're planning, a wedding, a party, a corporate gathering, consider using a great sponsor of this podcast, Catering by Uptown. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Catering by Uptown is outstanding. It is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, who are terrific Washington Commanders fans, and Catering by Uptown will provide you and your event with excellent service. Catering by Uptown staff on the day of your event is the first to arrive and last to leave and is fully prepared to offer quality, variety, and abundance, prepared to execute the plan that you and Catering by Uptown created together. Catering by Uptown specialty is weddings. Get excellent service at an affordable price. In fact, if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can check out Catering by Uptown's premier wedding venues. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. The best pitcher in Washington, D.C. baseball history is Walter Johnson. Of that, there is no doubt. The best pitcher for the Washington Nationals since the franchise moved to D.C. in the 2004-2005 offseason is Max Scherzer. Of that, there is no doubt. And we on Monday evening had Max Scherzer on his birthday and in his return from the 15-day injured list pitching at the Nats. The Nats did lose, 3-2 loss to the Toronto Blue Jays at Nationals Park on Monday evening in game one of a three-game series. Each of the Nats' last three losses now has been a one-run loss. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 54-53 with a run differential of plus 29, but still are one game out regarding the National League's third of three wildcard spots. The Arizona Diamondbacks lost at the Pittsburgh Pirates 3-2 in 10 innings on Monday evening. The Pirates and Diamondbacks now are tied for that third NL wildcard spot. The Blue Jays in this regular season now are 49-58 with a run differential of minus 61. A mostly quiet game for the Nats. Great offense on Monday evening. Just 2 runs, 8 hits, which were a home run, 2 doubles, and 5 singles. Just 2 for 10 with runners in scoring position, 13 strikeouts. The Nats did draw 4 walks, and yeah, the Blue Jays starting pitcher was Max Scherzer. And the game happened on his 42nd birthday and on the day on which he came off the 15-day injured list, which he had been on since June 17th, retroactive to June 14th, due to back spasms. Scherzer allowed 1 run in 2 2/3 innings on a whopping 75 pitches, 44 strikes versus 31 balls. The Nats fouled off a ton of Scherzer's pitches, including Dalen Lyle fouling off 7 pitches during a 12-pitch swinging strikeout as the final batter who Scherzer faced. He recorded 4 strikeouts, but also issued 3 walks and gave up 4 hits, which were a double and 3 singles. Scherzer clearly was at a guess. He did not seem to complain at all about being taken out of this game by Blue Jays manager John Schneider. Look, Max Scherzer is on his last legs, but he, of course, has been such a warrior, got a really nice ovation as he walked off the field in being taken out of the game in the bottom of the third. And then the Nats struggled big time against Blue Jays relief pitchers. 6 Blue Jays relievers combined to allow 1 run in 6 1/3 innings with 9 strikeouts versus 1 walk. The Blue Jays closer, Louis Varland, brother of relief pitcher Gus Varland, who is currently pitching for the Nats AAA affiliate, the Rochester Red Wings. Louis Varland generated a swinging strikeout of Luis Garcia Jr. with runners on first and second to end the game. The Nats home run was by Andres Chaparro. He came off the bench to pinch hit and serve as the Nats DH, went 1 for 2 with a solo homer. Chaparro in the Nats 1-run 5th had a pinch, 1-out first pitch, solo homer to left field to cut the Nats deficit to 3-2. The homer went a projected 432 feet per StatCast. Andres Chaparro for this month of July now has 5 home runs and a slugging percentage of .871. Another Nats player having an outstanding July, of course, is C.J. Abrams. He is the Nats starting shortstop and number 4 batter. Went 0 for 2, but with 2 walks, and he went 2 for 2 on 2 uncontested stolen bases. And Abrams on Monday afternoon was named National League Player of the Week. Well-deserved. This for games played from the previous Monday through this past Sunday. I mentioned Luis Garcia Jr. He was the Nats starting first baseman and number 2 batter went 2 for 5 with an RBI double and a single. Garcia in the Nats 1-run second had a 2-out RBI double to right field off the outfield wall for a 1-0 Nats lead. Luis Garcia Jr. for this regular season now has an OPS of .857. The Nats in this 3-2 loss to the Blue Jays at Nationals Park on Monday evening used an opener who was relief pitcher Eddie Jean. He allowed 2 runs in 2 1/3 innings. He tossed 2 perfect innings on just 11 pitches. He was rolling, but he in the top of the third allowed 2 runs, gave up a 1-out first pitch solo homer by Luis Arias to center field to tie the game at 1. The homer went a projected 416 feet per Statcast. Jean then gave up a 1-out double by Miles Straw to left field on a 1-2 pitch, and then gave up a 1-out RBI double by Ernie Clement off the third base bag and into left field for a 2-1 Blue Jays lead. Then starting pitcher Andrew Alvarez came into the game as the Nats bulk pitcher. He allowed 1 run in 4 1/3 innings despite giving up 4 hits, despite issuing 3 walks, and despite throwing 45 strikes versus 35 balls over 80 pitches. So the 4 hits that he allowed were a double and 3 singles. He recorded 3 strikeouts. So he put a lot of guys on base, but ultimately the run prevention was there, right? 1 run in 4 1/3 innings. And that really has been the story for Andrew Alvarez at the major league level in this regular season. 15 games, including 7 starts, ERA of 4.06, whip of 1.51. The ERA isn't that bad. The whip is bad, but he's doing a good job of preventing runs. And there's also this. He has allowed just 2 home runs in 57 2/3 innings. In fact, he now has pitched 40 consecutive innings without allowing a home run. Alvarez is doing an outstanding job of avoiding the home run, but the Nats late night on Monday night announced having optioned Alvarez to AAA Rochester as the pitching staff churn continues. The roster maneuvering continues. And the Nats in this 3-2 loss to the Blue Jays at Nationals Park on Monday evening used 2 pitchers beyond opener Eddie Jean and bulkman Andrew Alvarez. Paxton Schultz faced 4 batters and got 3 outs. As he is back, the Nats on Monday afternoon announced having recalled Schultz from AAA Rochester and announced having designated relief pitcher Matt Crook for assignment as the bullpen maneuvering by Nats president of baseball operations Paul Taboni continues, and Carson Palmquist tossed 1 1/3 perfect innings. So good work by Schultz and Palmquist. They combined for 2 1/3 scoreless and hitless innings. Game 2 for the Nats against the Blue Jays at Nationals Park Tuesday evening at 6:45. The Nats have listed Cade Cavalli as their probable starting pitcher for the game. Life insurance. You and your family hopefully never need it, but not having it can make a tragic situation even worse. We have a family friend who lost her husband to cancer. Him not having life insurance made the ensuing years even more difficult. Well, Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You'll just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. You'll get your lowest rate from Ethos' network of trusted carriers. And know this, Ethos has a rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes today to get covered with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Al Galdi. That's ethos.com/Al Galdi. Ethos.com/Al Galdi. Application times may vary. Rates may vary. Trustpilot rating as of June 1st, 2025.
Imagine buying your kid a toy only to find the batteries aren't included, or buying furniture but missing the tools to build it. Frustrating, right? Now imagine the exact same feeling, but you're paying way more. That is what buying business software usually feels like. Fragmented, disconnected, and incredibly expensive. Odoo completely changes that. Odoo is a complete, fully integrated business suite where all your apps actually talk to each other. We're talking automated lead routing for your sales team, seamless AI integration, and intuitive point-and-click website builder. It's everything your business needs to scale, saving you time, headaches, and money. Stop piecing your software together. Go to odoo.com. That's odoo.com to learn more.
So on Monday evening at Comerica Park in Detroit had quite the scene. A squirrel ran onto the field, resulting in Baltimore Orioles outfielder Leody Taveras and the Tigers grounds crew having to swarm the squirrel. The squirrel was taken care of, and the O's did take care of the game. An 8-5 win at the Detroit Tigers on Monday evening in game one of a 3-game series. The O's in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 52-55 with a run differential of -11, and now are 2 games behind the Cleveland Guardians for the American League's 3rd of 3 wildcard spots. The Guardians game at the Cincinnati Reds for Monday night got rained out. The Tigers in this regular season now are 50-57, but with a run differential of +25. Very good offense for the O's on Monday evening. 8 runs, 12 hits, which were 3 home runs, 2 doubles, and 7 singles, 4 walks, 3 for 11 with runners in scoring position, just 3 strikeouts. Kobe Mayo, he is the Orioles starting third baseman and number 7 batter, went 2 for 4 with a 2-run homer and an RBI single, and the 2 hits came off right-handed pitching. Mayo in the Orioles' 1-run third had a one-out RBI single to left center field for a 4-1 Orioles lead. The single came off right-handed Tigers starting pitcher Cater Montero, and Mayo in the Orioles' 3-run fifth had a one-out 2-run homer to left field for a 7-3 Orioles lead. The homer came off right-handed Tigers relief pitcher and former Orioles prospect Brendan Hanafy, who is from Harrisonburg, Virginia. But Kobe Mayo, who has struggled big time against right-handed pitching, 2 big hits off right-handed pitching. Mayo for this regular season now has an OPS of 1,072 versus left-handed pitching and an OPS of just 481 versus right-handed pitching. Extreme platoon splits, but Kobe Mayo for this regular season also now has 14 home runs. Leody Taveras, he is the Orioles starting center fielder and number 5 batter, went 1 for 5 with a solo homer. Taveras in the Orioles' 3-run fifth had a one-out solo homer to right field for a 5-3 Orioles lead. The homer went a projected 416 feet per Statcast. Tyler O'Neill, he in the Orioles' 1-run sixth had a pinch leadoff homer to left field on an 0-2 pitch for an 8-5 Orioles lead. Maybe the most encouraging offensive item for the O's in this game was Jackson Holliday as the Orioles starting shortstop and number 6 batter, going 4 for 5 with a double and 3 singles. Did get thrown out in an attempted steal of second base, but Jackson Holliday is having a really nice July in terms of getting on base. He, for this month of July now, has a 484 on base percentage. And Pete Alonso continues to have a good season. He is the Orioles starting first baseman and number 2 batter, went 2 for 5 with a double and a single. He, for this regular season, now has an OPS of 815. The Orioles starting pitcher in this 8-5 win at the Tigers on Monday evening was Kyle Bradish. He was not good for just the 4th time in 14 outings, a rare bad outing for Kyle Bradish these days. He allowed 5 runs in 4 2/3 innings, gave up 10 hits, which were a triple, 2 doubles, and 7 singles, did have 4 strikeouts versus 1 walk, issued a wild pitch, threw a lot of pitches, but also a good number of strikes. He over his 4 2/3 innings threw 93 pitches, but 60 strikes versus 33 balls. He just gave up a lot of hits. Again, 10 hits in 4 2/3 innings. Kyle Bradish in this regular season now, 21 games all starts, ERA of 3.74, whip of 1.36. But while Kyle Bradish struggled, the Orioles relief pitching did not. It was great. 4 Orioles relievers combined for 4 1/3 scoreless innings with 6 strikeouts versus no walks. Yunier Cano retired each of the 3 batters he faced. Grant Wolfram tossed 1 1/3 perfect innings with 2 strikeouts. Andrew Kittredge tossed a scoreless bottom of the 8th despite giving up a leadoff single and despite issuing a wild pitch. And Rico Garcia, who, as we have discussed, lately had not been doing well. He did do well. He tossed a perfect bottom of the 9th with 2 strikeouts for the save. Really nice work by the Orioles bullpen. Also, some roster moves by the O's. So they, on Monday afternoon, announced having recalled catcher Joel Pozo from AA Chesapeake and having designated catcher Sam Huff for assignment. The O's last Thursday afternoon announced having claimed Pozo off waivers from the Cincinnati Reds and having optioned him to AAA Norfolk. So the Orioles' active catchers at the major league level now are Chadwick Tromp and Joel Pozo as the team's top 2 catchers catchers. Adley Rutschman and Samuel Basayo are on the 10-day injured list. Also, the O's on Monday evening announced having traded outfielder Jonathan Rodriguez to the Pittsburgh Pirates for cash consideration. So the O's this past Thursday afternoon announced having optioned Rodriguez to AAA Norfolk after the previous day's doubleheader and having designated him for assignment. Game 2 for the O's at the Tigers, Tuesday evening at 6:40. The O's have listed Dean Kramer as their probable starting pitcher for the game. And that'll do it for you and me for now, but there's more to come. Wednesday's show, episode 1376, will include a lot for you on the Washington Commanders, as we on Tuesday have veterans reporting for 2026 Washington Commanders training camp, and we on Tuesday expect General Manager Adam Peters and head coach Dan Quinn to speak to the media. Also on Wednesday's show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats are home to the Toronto Blue Jays Tuesday evening at 6:45 for Game 2 of a 3-game series. The O's are at the Detroit Tigers Tuesday evening at 6:40 for Game 2 of a 3-game series. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
I do fully expect this to be our most competitive camp that we've had, in going into year 3.